introduce them, although certainly the faculty members don't need any introduction. I'm not going to say anything more about Yehezkel, who is far to my left. Enough has been said about him. He's done many things in the interfaith world, but I think the most important thing he's done is join the Hartford Seminary faculty, and that we know. We have the two other faculty members who have just joined me on my extreme right. The first is Najib Awad, a Syrian Christian who has just joined us in teaching theology. And he comes from his last academic assignment, which was in Germany. Again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to give you his illustrious background. Again, knowing that he's a professor of theology here at Hartford Seminary is all you need to know about him. Of course, Mahmoud and Ayoub, who is sitting next to him, is among the most distinguished members of our faculty. He has spent a significant portion of his life at Temple University, really heading an extremely important center of Muslim studies, and he has done a number of things at other important universities, the University of Pennsylvania, the Pacific School of Religion. But again, we felt so lucky to be able to get a person of his stature on our faculty. And again, you should know him if you don't already. So we have Yehezkel, who's Jewish. We have Professor Awad, who is Christian, and Mahmoud, Ayoub, who is Muslim. Now, for the students, sitting next to me is Rapkin, who has been a student here. She is Jewish, and Anne has matriculated in the Masters of Arts program and is in the midst of her second career as a hospital chaplain as she continues her studies. To my left is Linda Spiers, is a rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Collinsville, and currently studying in the Doctor of Ministry program. She's a graduate of the Berkeley School, Divinity School at Yale and the University of Richmond in Virginia. She has also participated in the Building Abrahamic Partnerships program here at the seminary, and she's active in the Episcopal Diocese of Connecticut and has previously served as Associate for Cathedral Life at Christ Church Cathedral in Hartford. And next to her is Salahuddin Muhammad. He's a graduate of both the Islamic Chaplaincy program and the Doctor of Ministry program here at the seminary, and currently serves as a Muslim chaplain for the New York State Department of Correctional Services, and is the spiritual leader of the Islamic Learning Center of Orange County in Newburgh, New York. Imam Muhammad is also president of the Alumni Council here at the seminary and a member of the Board of Trustees. So we have a rather distinguished panel here, and I'm interested to hear how this program that we've been so fortunate to now have an endowment to continue has affected it. Of course, Yehezkel has to go first because this event has probably affected his life more than anybody else's.
Thank you, Marlon. Shalom, assalamu alaikum to you all. Peace and blessings. Happy Veterans Day. This is a special occasion, an opportunity for me, clearly, and it crystallizes or solidifies my sense of belonging and commitment to this professional family that has been mine, much to my delight for the last 10 years, last decade of my life. I thought it was a sabbatical decade, but it's been a lot of hard work, for which I am deeply grateful, really, after 24 years in the peace trenches of the Middle East, to have some opportunity to get some distance, geographical anyway, not emotional distance, but geographical distance, and the opportunity to teach and write and to mentor younger, it's all relative, younger scholar practitioners, including people from the Middle East. The Middle East keeps coming here, which is, for me, a sign of confirmation that I'm in the right place that I haven't left the Middle East and it hasn't left me. So I want to thank, first of all, Heidi. I'll never forget when we first met on the wall there at Basset, and we talked about working together, and little did we know, I certainly, 10 years on, here I would be, your faculty colleague, and I'm immensely grateful to you, first of all, to the board of this seminary for your vote of confidence in me, for Marty and Najib for helping us get the building in my office now. It's really the nicest office I've ever had in my life. Thank you. Venue is a very important thing. My faculty colleagues, the staff, the unbelievably dedicated staff of this institution, and our students who come here with such rich life experiences. So I learned so much from them, and that for me is such a great honor and blessing. And to Trudy and Neil, there are no words I can say to express my gratitude for your vision and your dedication to making this, the chair, be a reality. I am just thrilled, delighted, humbled to be the first named occupant of this chair. But to think that in perpetuity there will be somebody, I hope an interfaith-oriented Jew, to be among the distinguished faculty of this unique institution. It's, for me, a dream come true. So thanks for dreaming, all of us dreamers, making it happen. And for me, it's really a tangible statement of faith and commitment by this seminary to supplement and enrich the Christian-Muslim conversation, to have a Jewish faculty person, colleague, conversation partner, interlocutor. It's a historic step building on decades of achievement in interfaith engagement and pointing to a more promising, inclusive future, fruitful future for all of us in this special institution, which I experience as a living laboratory in promoting Jewish, Christian, Muslim mutual understanding and solidarity. We're known for combining theory and practice, engaging the mind, the heart, and the spirit all together. The public arena is polluted by all kinds of dehumanizing, even demonizing rhetoric, and we know how important it is to present alternatives, spiritually grounded truth to combat the lies, the distortions, the misinformation that people just swallow uncritically because they don't know any better. Here, in this conversation, I distinguish among three kinds of truth. Theological truth claims which in many fundamental ways cannot be reconciled. I say vive la différence. I'm certainly not a syncretist. I'm a pluralist, but not a syncretist. I think God is a pluralist too, but that's a chutzpahdik statement to make any claims about God. But God could have made us all the same by now, and if God has chosen not to do that, I give God credit for sanctioning difference. I once met a group of Presbyterians at the Tantur Ecumenical Institute outside Jerusalem who said, give God a little more time and we'll all be Presbyterian. God's had a lot of time. God hasn't done that yet. I assume God really doesn't have that intention. Okay, so about theological truths, we just have to agree to disagree, but not stop there. Really dig deeply into how our Abrahamic siblings can still enrich our self-understanding even when they present a different understanding of God. What does a triune God mean to a Jew or a Muslim? Well, that may not compute rationally, but devotionally, even conceptually, the notion of relationships within the divine is something to not just analyze, but to cherish, to really value. there are two other levels of truth where we don't have to really disagree, but we have to find tangible ways of coming together. And those are the ethical and the devotional levels of truth-telling, truth-knowing. There, we have to really teach each other, because none of us has a monopoly on any of these truths, especially on the ethical plane, where we need to join together to make sure our endangered species survive. You have to talk the language of self-interest that starts in survival. For me, I would have to say, if I were to encapsulate my work in one word, it would be interspirituality. Because I believe that when we stand in the presence of God together, whether in word or silence or song or body prostration, whatever movement we make, that's where we most fundamentally unite. So I feel uplifted, really bolstered, challenged, humbled, and very grateful to be able to forge new relationships, strengthen the ones that are right here. These are my cherished sisters and brothers right here on the table. Everyone in this room, I really want to thank you. And so together we can expand the network of Abrahamic partners, grounded in the fertile soil of this God-graced institution, Hartford Seminary. Thank you very much.
Why Yehezkel is a very special person, but there's something that you're not aware of. He finished exactly in 10 minutes. So now, Professor Mahmoud Ayoub, can you talk to us about the Abrahamic Partnership Program and what it has meant and what you think it can mean?
Yes, and I will try to follow Yehezkel's example and speak for only 10 minutes. Let me first take the opportunity to thank Mr. Awad for his wonderful donation. Now I refuse to teach except in that building. In fact, my class was scheduled for the room here upstairs, and I asked to be transferred to the Awad building because of its warmth and also the spirit that came with it. I would also like to thank the donors for the chair, because we are now actually celebrating not only a new instrument of teaching, but really an event that is very important in the life of the seminary. I hope we will soon celebrate also the Islamic Studies Chair. So we would all be blessed together, and finally sometime maybe we will have a Christian chair and we will all be equal. Now, equal chairs, nobody stand. Now, the Quran declares, ملة أبيكم إبراهيم هو الذي سماكم المسلمين من قبل. It is the faith community or nation of your father Abraham. He it is who called you Muslims aforetime. This and many other verses of the Quran tell us clearly that Abraham was not a good man, but basically he was a man of faith, which indicates that Islam, at least in its beginning and its spirit, is not an ethnic identity or an ideology, but an answer to a call by God through Abraham, our father, to be truly Muslims, that is, people who submit their lives and their wills to the divine will, regardless of what actually affiliation they may have. It's in this spirit that the Quran regards as Muslims all the prophets before Muhammad, and that Muhammad did not come with a new religion or message, but rather with a call for all the children of Abraham to follow the example of their father, who was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but a true submitter to God. And Abraham obeyed God's command with regard to sacrificing his son, the dearest thing that he had in life, which he got in old age. And it's interesting that the Quran does not specify which of the two sons of Abraham was demanded to be sacrificed. The Muslims are divided. The majority think it was Ishmael, but there is a significant Muslim minority that thinks that it was Isaac. Perhaps both of Abraham's children share in the Abrahamic covenant. God told Abraham that his seed, not specifying, will be a source of blessing for all nations, and that his progeny will be countless in the world, as many as the stars of heaven or the sands of the oceans. And so the question then arises for us, and I'm hoping that this question will be contemplated and deeply discussed in the spirit of Abraham's submission to the will of God. The question is, who are the children of Abraham, and how can they live in a life of true fraternal dedication to faith in God and following the example of their father Abraham? We all share in the Abrahamic covenant. We all share, whatever our religion may be, Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, in the fact that Abraham is not only our physical father for Arabs and Jews, but our spiritual father for all the believers in the three communities. This was demonstrated often, notably when Moses Maimonides, Rambam, the great Jewish rabbi, philosopher, wrote in his epistle to the people, to the Jews of Yemen, that being the child of Abraham is not an ethnic identity, but a spiritual belonging. And therefore the Jews of the Khazari converts in Europe or wherever it was, in Russia, are as much children of Abraham as the Sephardic or Ashkenazi Jews of other areas. When the Quran declared that we must follow the polity, the millah of our father Abraham, the Quran was not talking simply to the Arabs, but to all the Muslims wherever and in whatever country or region of the world they may be. And so it is my hope as a Muslim participant in the share of building Abrahamic partnerships that we would actually, in honesty, sincerity, and dedication, we would actually try to build true partnerships as sisters and brothers, the children of Abraham. I've often mentioned the fact that Ishmael and Isaac, after Ishmael and his mother were expelled by our father Abraham, actually in Islam it was not an expulsion. There was a program that God wanted Abraham to take his child and his wife Hagar to Arabia. But be that as it may, they came together, the two sons of Abraham, in the end to wash and bury their father. And I hope that we do not always come to wash and bury our father Abraham, but to celebrate him and to contemplate the heritage that he has left for us. A heritage that should make us better brothers and sisters rather than enemies as we often are. So I wish the chair of Abrahamic Partnership all the success and blessing of God, and I promise to be a good member of the faculty that will participate in fulfilling the purpose and the aim of this chair, and I thank you very much.
I'm sorry that we are not recording this because I think this will give you a very good example. We are. The quality of the faculty we have here, and shortly the quality of the students who come here, because I think you are seeing some of the best in writing that we have to offer. And now one of our newest members of the faculty, Najib, Awad, and hopefully you will keep within the time. You did very well. I was going to say, whenever you say you'll do something, you do it.
I'll do my best, of course. I'm very glad to be here in this event. Definitely. I sit here today as specifically the professor of Christian theology. Okay. To share with you some insights on how do I view this new chair, and how do I think it will contribute to research and ministry in relation to Christian faith and to interfaith relationships alike in this school. And I would like to share with you my answer personally, but also theologically, if I may. Personally means I should really look at this chair within the wider framework of the school as such. Establishing an Abrahamic Partnership Chair comes as a natural development in Hartford Seminary's past and present context. The history of the school is really a long history of interreligious dialogue and interreligious relationships. And the orientation towards interfaith dialogue and the concern about building bridges of relationships and education on the three Abrahamic religions were actually the ultimate factors that attracted me to the seminary and made me recently one of its faculty. Almost 1 year ago, when I was still living and working in Germany, I was searching for a possible open teaching position in USA when I chanced upon Hartford Seminary's open position in Christian theology. As I visited its website and read about its history and scholarly atmosphere, my attention has been immediately captured by the school's perception of and serious attention to the newly rising orientation towards interreligious and multi-faith academic curricula. My reading of the school's profile told me in no clearer words that in its educating of students from Christian, Muslim, and Jewish backgrounds, and in its creating for these students a dialogue and interaction venue, Hartford Seminary makes a giant step toward the interreligious, intercultural, and cross-cultural future our world is heading to rapidly. As far as I am concerned, becoming a professor of Christian theology in Hartford Seminary was a natural step to me. I am an Eastern Christian Protestant from the Arab Republic of Syria. I come from the birthplace of the Abrahamic religions. I come from a region torn apart with clashes, wars, and enmity between the countries where the followers of the three Abrahamic religions belong, and they have been trying hard to survive and to live in a minimal state of peace for many decades. In our homeland, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims do not yet have a chance to communicate and dialogue, let alone to coexist openly or peacefully. the mere possibility of interaction as such is not available most of the time. Back home, me and my fellow Christian and Muslim Syrians are not able to meet and dialogue with the Jews. No religious dialogue is possible, no human coexistence is actually allowed. Nevertheless, here in Hartford Seminary, an Eastern Christian from Syria like me, or an Eastern Muslim from Lebanon like my brother Mahmoud, are able to enjoy the friendship of an Israeli scholar like Yehezkel and work with him toward not only teaching on Abrahamic partnership, but also practicing this partnership on the ground. Actually, establishing an Abrahamic Partnership Chair in Hartford Seminary is actually a fulfillment of my dream of seeing one day a similar academic and dialogical venue being established in my homeland Syria and the entire Arab. Let me now move to the theological part of my answer. Only by means of developing scholarship from the angle of interfaith relationality, a Trinitarian systematic theologian like me would adhere to his religious principles. As a Trinitarian theologian who believes in the essential value of building bridges of mutual understanding and dialogue with Islam and Judaism, I see in the establishment of the Abrahamic Partnership Chair a lively, no less triadic, incarnation of the dialogical identity of the God whom these three religions believe in. Once, the famous Lebanese Durzi mystic philosopher and author Gibran said in his famous book, The Prophet, "When you love, do not say, God is in my heart, but say, I am in the heart of God." Loving the different others means building bridges of communication and communion with them. And there is no more influential and fruitful means for building these bridges of love other than dialogue. In his monograph on the Trinity, St. Augustine says at one point that being truly human means to love. And then Augustine speaks all along his book on love as a relation within God himself, between God and his word that lies in a reciprocal, correspondent communication. To take this Augustinian lesson back to Gibran, one can say that if being in love means being in the heart of God, and if the God of love is himself dialogue in essence, then loving the others and dialoguing with them is the first and foremost expression of being in God and believing in him as well. Only by grounding it in the truth of love and by rooting it in the soil of God's conversational life, dialogue would become uniting rather than divisive, as unfortunately it can turn up to be sometimes. The Christian Trinitarian understanding of God is no more, yet no less, than a humble, imperfect human attempt at expressing a belief in a dialogical and communal rather than a despotic and enclosed deity. It is a belief in God as a dialogue per se. It is a way for seeing this dialogical God and no other, imaged in our students and faculty's interrelations and coexistence as followers of three deeply interrelated and intertwined religions. By understanding the dialogical value and role of the newly established chair of Abrahamic Partnership from the angle of God's dialogical essence as self-giving love, I am concurring here with the German famous theologian Jürgen Moltmann's conviction that the right thing to do in relation to other religions is not to carry on the dialogue according to superficial rules of communication, but enter into it out of the depths of the understanding of God. From the angle of this Trinitarian understanding of dialogue as shaped after the belief in God per se, I view this new chair as an innovative and promising invitation to turn every coexistence, every common learning and worship opportunity we enjoy together in Hartford Seminary into a venue for living a trilateral life of interpenetration. From this Trinitarian angle and no other, I look with great aspirations at the establishment of this new chair in our school. I view in it a call from Hartford Seminary for all the followers, ministers, and servants of the three Abrahamic religions in America, but also around the world, to come together and learn how to image in their studies and academic interactions, as well as in their following life and ministry in the future, this dialogical love identity of our God, the Almighty and merciful Creator of heaven and earth. Thank you.
Those of you who are familiar with the songs and words of My Fair Lady will know that by our students we are taught. We now have 3 students to teach us and talk about what this program has meant or may mean to them in the future. So first is Ann Rapkin.
I have to say that I have never attended a class at the seminary where I haven't had a surprise, an intellectual surprise or a spiritual surprise, and what a surprise to come to a gathering like this and to hear articulated for me the first time a theology of interreligious dialogue. Thank you so much, Professor. We students have been asked to speak on 2 issues. One is the relationship, as we understand it, to between interreligious dialogue and religious leadership in the community, and how the preparation for such leadership is affected by interreligious education. And secondly, to talk about the relationship of interreligious education to the work that we are currently doing. I am not a religious leader, and I'm not a student at the seminary on the path to religious leadership. I am a member of a flock at a local synagogue where I participate in the worship life and some of the musical activities, and occasionally, like so many other women, members of the shul, I turn up in the kitchen to help polish ritual objects and help prepare a communal meal. So I can talk about interfaith education from religious leaders only as one who has sat in the pews for quite a few decades every week. From that perspective, I am convinced that interfaith relations would benefit significantly if clergy and religious educators were knowledgeable about all 3 Abrahamic faiths. And why is that? Because knowledgeable religious leaders are in the best position, I think, to combat prejudice and misunderstanding among their congregants, to dispel frightening stereotypes and give a human face to people of other traditions, perhaps primarily by demonstrating that all 3 Abrahamic traditions share a host of common beliefs, common customs, and, most important, common values, chief among them compassion and care of the poor and defenseless. A religiously knowledgeable and sensitive rabbi, for example, not only can use her or his pulpit to promote good interfaith relations, but can turn talk into action by reaching out to Christian and Muslim leaders in the community and together with them, develop interfaith activities that would benefit all local religious communities. I can't speak for Muslims or for Christians, only for Jews. And I know that Jews, as a result of their communal experience over the centuries, have many, many fears about Islam and Christianity, and often, very often, a sense of isolation from those who practice them. Fear and isolation are like a disease that cripples in many, many ways, personally and in the larger community. But I believe that both are curable through education and personal dialogue, the kind of personal, constructive dialogue that preeminently is fostered by the seminary's classes and programs. As for my work, I have begun, as Mr. Budd said, a new career, and I signed up for the Hartford Seminary's Building Abrahamic Partnerships class not long after beginning training for my new career, which is as a chaplain. One of the things that excited me about the class was its tremendous potential to enhance rapport between myself and Christian and Muslim patients. At the time I started chaplaincy training, I knew little about Christianity and absolutely nothing about Islam. And worse than that, I had not personally encountered a Muslim, at least anyone whom I was aware was Muslim, until I was well into my 40s. Many years later, when I began training at the hospital, at UConn Hospital, I was still entirely ignorant of Muslim religion and culture, and therefore I was leery of approaching Muslim patients for fear of saying something stupid or of simply being unable to make an emotional connection. The class on building Abrahamic partnerships changed that. From it, I learned some basic practical lessons, such as the importance of determining in advance, just as I would with the Orthodox Jewish family, whether my presence as a female would be welcome or not in a patient's room. I learned that a greeting of Salam Alaikum would help indicate my respect for the patient or the family's religion, language, or customs. I learned that Jews and Muslims use very similar names for God, including the ever-merciful one. So now, when I end a visit with a Muslim patient, I express my hope that Ar-Rahman, the merciful one, will bring healing soon to the patient. And incidentally, the Hebrew word for the ever-merciful one is Ar-Rahman, almost a perfect copy, if that's the right word. But building Abrahamic partnerships gave me more than technique. It gave voice to my sense that at our spiritual core, we are all one, and that we all carry sparks of the one. And in that sense, not only enhances my work as a chaplain, it enhances all of us as human beings and makes us feel so much more at home in a world of many faiths.
Well, I call on the head of our Alumni Association and fellow trustee, Salahuddin Muhammad.
Good evening, everyone. The praise is certainly due to the Creator of us all, the ever merciful, the ever compassionate. And I'm thankful to be here amongst you and my dear friend Yehezkel, and all of my friends and associates here. It's been wonderful. Let me just say to you that when I first heard about Hartford Seminary. I wanted to be a part of it. I felt that the program that Hartford was providing was like a tailor-made fit for me, a tailor-made fit. And I'm a Muslim coming to what people call the Christian seminary, but I felt it was a tailor-made fit because it's about being with people of faith. And one of the first courses that we all had to take was Dialogue and World Difference. And then another course that came after that was Building Abrahamic Partnerships. Now, it was not my first opportunity to deal with the so-called other, because within my own community, back in 1975, we had been called to talk to people and not just talk amongst ourselves. So it was basically for me putting icing on the cake, so to speak, by being in this particular class. I had also been involved with a group of clergy in the Mid-Hudson Valley, and we called ourselves the Fellowship of Brother Lawrence. So I've had some contact. But in those kinds of settings, we kind of talked about mysticism, we kind of talked about Abraham, we kind of talked about some of the other things that we all agreed on. But we didn't get into the real deep stuff. We didn't really dig deep. But in building Abrahamic partnerships, we got kind of deep. We sat with Christians, we sat with Muslims, we sat with Jewish people, and one of the tasks that we had was to sit down and talk about those verses that are troubling. The verses that we have in our books that are troubling. The verses that people don't want to talk about because they're troubling. So we talked about those verses. You know, a lot of Christians and Jews, they definitely want to know, well, what does it mean? Kill them wherever you find them. You know, that's a tough verse. What does it mean? And then you get the opportunity to let them know it doesn't mean what you think. It doesn't mean what the Islamophobes say to scare you and make you think that we want to just kill everybody that doesn't want to become a Muslim. But it's speaking about something historical. It speaks about something that happened some time ago when there was war going on. It speaks about that. It doesn't speak about wherever you see people, any people, they're not Muslims, you're supposed to kill them. It doesn't speak about that. It speaks about that wartime. That's done, that's over. Okay? And then hearing what other people had to say. I wanted to know, I don't remember exactly what it was within the Jewish text or the Hebrew text, or what it was within the Christian text, but we got together and we discovered things about the other, which is so important. Now, in the book that the Muslims hold to be a book of guidance for human beings, called the Noble Quran, some call it the Holy Quran, in it has a verse that says that the Creator created us all. He created us all from the same source. From the same source. But He created us different. He created us into nations and tribes that we should come to know one another. So what comes out to me, what reigns truth to me is that if He wanted us to be all the same, He could have made us all the same, because God doesn't make mistakes. Not from my perspective. And so He made us different so that we can enhance our knowledge, that we can grow and learn other things. And so it's a gift. Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs calls it the dignity of difference. I call it the gift of difference, that He made us different purposely. So building Abrahamic partnerships, to me, gives us a safe space. It gave us a safe space to be able to get involved with certain things, where some people have never been in the synagogue, some Muslims have never been in the synagogues, some Jewish people have never been in a mosque, or a Christian never been in a mosque. So now we're going to these places to see how the people worship, etc. So we're able now to touch base with people that's considered to be other, but the reality is we're all family. Because again, the tradition tells us we all came from the same source. We, the people of faith, Abrahamic faiths, we say we believe that we all came from Adam and Eve. And it's not fictive relationship like they teach you in sociology. It's real relationship. So we are all family. So building Abrahamic partnership gave us a safe place to explore these things, to dig deeper, and to become friends with one another. So I have many friends from the Christian faith, many friends from the Jewish faith, and even some more friends from the Muslim faith, because we had people from other places too, like the Turkish community. They came and they were part of this. So it was a wonderful experience, and it is as it should be. No one living today should be an island unto themselves. I don't think that because we all are like in one room, we should know something about the other. And when we begin to explore and learn something about the other, then we find that we have so many similarities. We are all the same people. And we start here, but then we take it out. So what we've done together has helped me to even do more in terms of bridge building, and it's important. I believe that the sun is rising in the west. We have a tradition that speaks to that. And some people just think it's dealing with the physical sun itself. But I believe that in terms of what goes on in other places in the world, they will begin to see the light from what we do here. And I believe that Hartford Seminary is at the helm of that. And for that, I am so grateful to be a part of it. Thank you.
Linda, as you probably know, you're next.
I have to bring it home. Well, it's a great honor to be here tonight, and it has always been an honor for me to study at Hartford Seminary. It's a place where people of the book can come together and be in conversation. And there's a quote from St. Isaac the Syrian, who said, "Dive down into yourself, and there you will find the steps by which you might ascend." As we're able to dive more deeply into the depths of our souls, that I think is where we find God and a deeper understanding of God. And the Abrahamic Partnership Chair, I think, provides a profound space for digging deeper into one's soul and into one's own faith tradition. I know for me, as I study and am in conversation with someone who is very different from me, it makes me understand my own faith even more deeply, and I'm very grateful for that. I attended Building Abrahamic Partnerships in 2009, and it was a huge impact on me spiritually and theologically. Yehezkel's work with BAP has inspired me to act and not just to study. His work has pushed me into areas where people may not want to go, and yet into areas where we must go. I think it's a major responsibility for me as a parish leader to walk with people as they learn and to create an environment where Christian leaders are prepared for the world in which we live. We send people out into the world every Sunday after our services, and I think it's important for us all to know the kind of world we live in and the differences that we encounter. I emphasize teaching my congregation about matters of interfaith from the pulpit and in very practical ways since BAP. It's been an important part of my ministry for many years, and I especially felt when I had an opportunity to visit the Holy Land in 1992, spend time in Israel, and it was in that place that I really felt most deeply not being able to understand why we as Jews, Christians, and Muslims can't share that holy ground together. And it continues to puzzle me, and I know it's puzzled people throughout the centuries. But I think this place of Hartford Seminary is a place where we can begin to be in those kinds of conversations and to try to make a difference in our world. God calls us all to live and to love, as to love God and to love neighbor. We all have that in common amongst our Abrahamic traditions. And I'm always looking for ways in particular to instill that in young people. Most of our traditions have challenge in holding on to our young people once they've been confirmed or bat mitzvahed, whatever the adult place is in our traditions. And I have a symbol that I brought with me tonight. It's prayer beads, and it symbolizes for me a lot of what happens here at Hartford Seminary. We learn how to pray together as Abrahamic brothers and sisters. And this is a particularly different kind of prayer bead. There are beads on it as normal, but there's a symbol on the end of it, which is a wheel. And on the wheel it has spokes. At the end of each spoke are traditional symbols across the Star of David, the symbols for five different traditions. And in the center is a pole, and it shows where we all come together and can be together in the center. And yet, in between the spokes are spaces where we are all continuing to learn. And I think we all have those places in our own tradition where we don't understand enough. And it's as we come together and have discussions together across our Abrahamic faith that we begin to understand this God who is the one God for all of us, the one God who calls us all to be one. So it's another way that I'm trying to work with our kids. We're going to make these prayer beads with this particular kind of symbol on it. And it's as I say, it's a symbol for me of what happens here, is that we have the freedom to pray and to learn each other's rituals and to learn each other's traditions, and what a gift that is. As Episcopalians, we are people of the book, just as Jews and Muslims, and it's vital for academic preparation, for leadership to understand some level of our sisters and brothers who differ from us. We discover in the process how much we have in common, as many of us have already said, as well as understand our own uniqueness and what a gift that is. We learn how to be open with one another without losing ourselves in the process. And it's incumbent upon us to teach our faith communities to accept and to learn from each other. In the practice of ministry, since I've gone to BAP, I've offered a number of book studies, some of which Yehezkel introduced me to: The Lemon Tree, An Entrance to the Garden of Eden, Elie Wiesel's Messengers of God, Karen Armstrong's Islam. A number of book studies that engage people in conversation to just come together and talk within my own tradition, so that they can begin to put language around how to talk with people who are very different from themselves. We also, right after I took BAP, I offered a Lenten program where I was the Christian representative, and we had a rabbi come and an Islam woman come and speak, who's a chaplain. And it brought people from all around our community, not only within our own Church of Trinity, but our greater community in Canton. And we don't have an opportunity out in the suburbs to have a lot of diversity. So it was wonderful to bring that in, and for us to openly talk about our own traditions and a path toward understanding of each other. We ended with a panel discussion, much like we're doing tonight, and it was quite a gift. So I think it takes us all working together to seek a deeper understanding of this God, the God who is one. And the Abrahamic Partnership Chair provides an avenue of trust and truth and knowledge, all of which I believe God calls us all to. And my work at Hartford Seminary has been a gift, opening the door for lifelong thirst for deeper understanding of the other. And for that, I'm grateful, and for our donors this evening, and for this opportunity.